Hello folks, I'm Steve from Martell Training Group. Today we're going to go over the FARS or Firearms Application Registration System. That's a system in New Jersey used to, if you want to purchase a handgun, if you want to get a firearms purchaser identification card in order to buy long guns in New Jersey, shotguns, rifles, you need to apply through this online system. So that's what we're going to cover today. In the past, in order to buy a handgun in New Jersey or get a firearms purchaser identification card in New Jersey, you would apply through your local police department and you would go in there, get the paperwork, and you'd fill it out and submit it. Now it's all done online. Firearms Application and Registration System. When I was still an active duty trooper, I've been retired for a couple of years. My last assignment was a firearms investigation unit. Our unit handled the implementation of this system. So the system was put in place while I was still there, and they've made some improvements, some changes since I left. The Firearms Purchaser Identification Card, or as it's known now as the State of New Jersey Firearm Identification Card, they're all electronic now, they're all online. So that card is used for example, to transport long guns, to buy long guns, shotguns and rifles in New Jersey. You need that card to buy a shotgun or a rifle in New Jersey. You also need the Firearms ID Card in order to buy ammunition in New Jersey. You also need it to be a member of a range, a licensed shooting range in New Jersey. So it also allows you to transport your long guns in New Jersey, your Firearms ID Card. And this ID card, what happens is when you apply, they do a background on you. Your mental health is checked, references are checked, and assuming that you get approved, you get issued this card. Now, recently the law was changed in New Jersey, and they implemented an expiration date on this card. But if you've had the card before the June date of when the law was enacted, your ID card does not expire. So this card basically says you've had a background and you passed the background. Now, of course, people say, well, what if you got it 5 years ago and you've been arrested? Well, when you go to buy a firearm, there's still the NICS check done at point of sale. That's a National Instant Criminal Background Check. It's a federal system that is maintained in New Jersey by the New Jersey State Police. They have a separate unit called the NICS unit that handles NICS checks for all the licensed firearms dealers in the state of New Jersey. So whenever you go buy a gun, whether it be a long gun or a handgun, they do a NICS check. It's a last minute check before you buy that gun, and they have a whole list of databases they're checking. So if you were arrested an hour ago, they'll know. If you're in the system, it'll come up during the NICS check. So that ID card, yes, you get a background check, and if it's been a while, then the background check isn't recent. But when you go to buy a handgun, now you need to apply for a permit to purchase a handgun in New Jersey. Only one permit to purchase per handgun, and you can only buy one every 30 days unless you fall under the exemption. There's an exemption you can apply for to buy more than one handgun within a 30-day period. So the easiest way, in my opinion, to get to it is you go to njsp.org, and now right on the first page, the main page of the New Jersey State Police website is firearms information. I'm going to click on this. So now I'm at this main web page under firearms information. You see the first thing it says, do not contact the New Jersey State Police if you submitted a FARS application. You're going to go through your local police for that. We'll get into that. But basically, if you scroll down, apply for a firearms permit or a firearms ID card. It's the first thing on the list. You click on that, and that brings you to this page, which says you must, if you reside in a city or town with a local police department, you apply to your local police department. Of course, you're still going to apply through this system, through this online system that is maintained by the state police. However, your application gets routed to your police department. So there's a queue, and when your local police officer who's in charge of firearms application logs in for the day, he or she can see all the pending applications in their police department that they have to handle, they have to process. So calling the state police is not going to help you. So if you have a local police, like say you live in Atlantic City and you have an issue and you call the state police. Of course, they can look it up, but they're not the police department doing your background. Atlantic City would be doing your background. So you want to go through your local police department. Now, some towns and cities in this state of New Jersey are patrolled by state police, meaning that they are the local police. In that case, there are a list of ORIs on the webpage. So it says right here, if you reside in a state police covered area, you identify which station you live in. So for example, if it's Woodbine Station, you know that that's your police station in your hometown. Click here and look, it gives you a whole list of state police stations and their corresponding ORIs. So if you live in Woodbine's area, here's NJSP 3500 would be your ORI that you would use for your application. So just to let you know. Now, it's got some information on here. So if we just click here and begin our application, this brings us to the main FARS window, or page, I should say. So it tells you what it is you're applying for and what you're doing here. It's got some help things here if you need them. It tells you if you put the wrong ORI in, you're going to pay fees and you're not going to be refunded. So like I said, you live in Atlantic City's area. If you put, say, Cherry Hill PD's in, ORI in, if you make a mistake, then you're going to have to do it again and you're going to just have to pay the fees again. They're not going to refund you. So make sure you get the right ORI. Contact your local PD. A lot of local PDs have an online presence, either have a web page or a Facebook page. And if you do a Google search for ORI for your PD and ORI, a lot of times it'll come right up and they'll have a page that has instructions on completing the FARS application along with their ORI. If they don't, you just have to reach out to them and say, I need to do a FARS application. I need the ORI, and they'll give it to you. Now, it also does talk about if you've never been fingerprinted, for firearms, and you have to be fingerprinted for firearms. So in New Jersey, you need to be fingerprinted to be a volunteer, a teacher, bus driver, physician, whatever it might be. If it's not for firearms, you need to get printed for firearms. So yes, in an ideal world, they would be able to link your prints with prints on file for something else in New Jersey, but they don't do it that way. You have to, if you've never been printed for firearms, you need to click here, and this will bring you to IndentoGO's website. They're a third-party company that New Jersey uses for their fingerprinting. Now, you can do, this is not the state of New Jersey. This is a separate company. You can schedule the appointment. It tells you what to bring. You basically need ID. You need a credit card to make the appointment and pay for it. And you show up, you pick a place that's close by you. They have locations all over the state. You pick a place that's close. It's very easy to do. It does not take long. Now, you click here when you're ready to go. And now the first thing it's asking you is that ORI. So that's what you need to complete this application. Your local police department's ORI. Put in Cherry Hill PD's ORI, and it does a check and it comes up Cherry Hill PD. So that is the correct ORI that I put in. So this is a double check for you. So where people run into problems is if they maybe have a PD, maybe they live in a small town and maybe a different PD patrols their town. Maybe they're not sure. So maybe they put in their PD. Maybe their PD doesn't do the backgrounds. Maybe the next town over does them. There aren't too many like that in New Jersey. There's 560 some municipalities in New Jersey. I don't know how many police departments there are, but like I said, where people can get into trouble is where they have one PD that maybe patrols 2 towns or 3 towns if they're small towns. Maybe they have their PD is a part-time police department. Maybe the state police patrols their area the rest of the time, so maybe the state police does their firearms applications. So that's what you have to confirm with your police department. So when we get this, we continue. This brings us to the next screen, which it asks us, is this your initial firearms purchaser ID? For me, it's not, because I already have one. I want a permit to purchase a handgun. So every time you want to buy a handgun, you have to do this process. And they're good for 90 days, and they're automatically renewed for an additional 90 days unless your chief of police cancels it, and your chief of police does have that ability to do that. And this would be good, in my opinion, in a case where maybe someone applied for and got approved for a handgun, a permit to purchase a handgun, and maybe there have been recent posts on social media about threats of violence, and the police department is investigating that person. They can go in there and they can see, hey, John Doe has a permit to purchase pending or approved. The chief can go in there and cancel that or put a hold on that, so that individual will not be able to execute that approved permit, or the chief will cancel that approved permit. That, in my opinion, is a good thing about this system. It allows the police more flexibility in an active investigation for an individual who may be thinking about or planning some violence. That's just one of the advantages, but there are a lot of advantages. It streamlines everything. It's quicker. A lot of things are automated with this check, so fewer mistakes are made. So you can also change your address on your ID card. You can change the sex on your ID card, change the name on your identification card if you get married, for example, or if you just change your name legally. So you can get a duplicate card if you lost your card. So you can do all these things. Number of permit. Now you can only do, I usually do more than what I need. So if I know I'm only going to buy one handgun. So, but I'll put 2 down just in case I go to buy the one and I decide I want to buy a second one. Now you can only do one every 30 days. So if I put 2 in there, it's going to ask her, am I a police officer? So, because police officers they have an exemption. If they're going to use the purchased handgun for work, they can actually buy 2 or 3 at one time. So I'm going to answer no to that. Have I been fingerprinted? Yes, I have been. So since I answered yes to being fingerprinted, they're going to immediately ask for my Firearms ID Card, or SBI number. That's the State Bureau of Identification number. In New Jersey, this is a unique number that's assigned to you when you are fingerprinted for firearms in the state of New Jersey. Well, when you're fingerprinted for any reason, you're assigned an SBI number in New Jersey. So if you lost your ID card and you don't have your ID card, or you don't know what this number is, but you know you've been fingerprinted for firearms, then this number your local police can get you this SBI number. So even though you might have an SBI number, if you've not been fingerprinted for firearms, you still need to get fingerprinted for firearms, like I mentioned before. You put this number in, then what's going to happen is it's going to ask you multiple handgun exemption. There are a couple of reasons why you would want to apply for a multiple handgun exemption. So one reason might be, for example, there's an individual owns, say, 10 handguns, and he passes away, dies. The estate does not want to keep the handguns. The surviving family, spouse, partner, whatever, does not wish to keep the handguns. They want to get rid of them all at once. They do have the option to sell them to a dealer, which then this doesn't even apply. However, if there's a friend of the family who says, you know what, I'll buy those 10 handguns, they can apply for this exemption, and it has to be approved in the system before you're able to execute more than one handgun in a 30-day period. So I'm going to say no. It's going to confirm that it's going to quote the statute to me, NJS 2C583I, to let me know that I can only purchase one every 30 days unless I've been approved for this handgun purchase exemption. Now, if I'm not approved and I do manage to get more than one handgun in within a 30-day period, sometimes this happens because the person's not sure about the exact transaction date. Maybe the dealer, it didn't go through on that date, or it went through the day before, and instead of 30 days, it's 29 days. So it will come up as a flag in the system, and you will be in there as a violation of that statute for getting more than one handgun in 30 days, and you will be contacted by the state police, just so you are aware. So you want to make sure only one handgun within a 30-day period. So when you continue, it's going to ask you all this personal information, a last name, gender, race, height, weight, all this date of birth. It's going to ask you about any aliases, any other names you've gone by in the past. Now, this has to match your government ID. So if you put a different middle initial here, or a different middle name than is on your driver's license, for example, and you get approved and this card is printed and you go to buy your handgun or your long gun, the dealer will not let you do the transaction if your name does not appear exactly as it does on your Firearms ID card or your permit to purchase a handgun as it does on your government ID. They have to match. So if they don't match, you need to fix either your license or you need to put it on this application as it is on your ID card, on your government ID. So the next page, after I enter all my personal information, date of birth, where I was born, it's going to bring me to the screen where it asks for my social security number and my driver's license number. It's going to tell me here, it does, that I don't have to provide this information. But if I don't, it's going to delay my application, because what it means is the police are going to have to conduct manual checks in certain databases if they don't have this information. So if I were you, I would provide it and put it in. It's all confidential. Have I ever lived in any other address in the past 10 years? If you have, you answer yes, and you need to put the addresses back to 10 years. And they are going to check those areas where you lived and see. Now, just as a word of caution, if you lived in an area you got in trouble with that PD and you feel like you don't want to put that down there, I would say don't go down that road, because they will find out there of other means to check your address history. And if they find out that you left out an address because you had issues with that PD for whatever reason, they're going to ask you about it. And if you lie on your application, it's a crime in New Jersey to lie on a firearms application. So if you do lie, you could be charged criminally. Contact information. Make sure this is correct. Your email, all these things in this system, it's electronic. They're going to notify you via email for everything. So all the status updates are going to come by via email. So make sure that information is correct. Now, this next section is all about questions. These questions are important, and you need to, if you're not sure how to answer these questions, you need to contact your local police department, whoever's doing your background, and you need to ask them specifically what issues you have or questions you have. Because if you answer these incorrectly or falsely, you could be charged criminally. So, for example, domestic violence, and asks you about domestic violence. Have you ever been subject to any court order pursuant to domestic violence? So even if you know for a fact that your attorney tells you this is going to be dismissed next week in court, you need to answer yes if you've been issued a court order pursuant to domestic violence. Doesn't matter if it's going to be dismissed. Doesn't matter if you think it was incorrectly issued or ordered by the judge. You need to answer truthfully. The only thing, if it's something that will be dismissed or is dismissed, it could possibly just mean your application is delayed or put on hold until the court case is adjudicated. But you must answer truthfully. Have you been adjudicated juvenile delinquent? If you have been, you need to answer truthfully, because they will check the juvenile database. This is very important here. Have you ever been convicted of a disorderly persons offense in New Jersey, or any criminal offense in any other jurisdiction, meaning another state, where you could have been sentenced up to 6 months in jail? Could have been sentenced up to 6 months in jail that has not been expunged or sealed. Could have been. Doesn't mean you were sentenced necessarily. So you could have been issued 3 months or 30 days or community service or time served, whatever. If this is important, and if you don't know, you need to contact an attorney or your attorney that handled this particular case. The next question, have you ever been convicted of a crime in criminal offense in another? So first it asks about DP, disorderly persons offenses. The next question is about a crime in New Jersey or another jurisdiction, which means another state. So if you've been convicted of a crime or criminal offense where you could have been sentenced to more than 6 months in jail, could have been sentenced. Doesn't mean you were sentenced, means you could have been. So if your attorney told you, hey, you could get a year, the judge can sentence you to a year in jail, and you only got 2 months or 3 months or time served or community service or probation, you need to answer this question, yes. And if you're not sure, you need to talk to the police department investigator who's doing your background and ask him or her how you should answer this based on your particular background. If they're not sure about your particular situation, you need to contact an attorney, a licensed attorney in New Jersey who's familiar with firearms law, because this is where you could get jammed up if you say, well, I didn't even go to jail. I didn't go to jail. But again, if your attorney told you you could have been sentenced to a year in jail, so it doesn't matter what you were sentenced to. It matters what you could have been according to these two questions. I'm not going to go through every question. You have to answer them truthfully because, again, if you lie, it's a crime and you can be criminally charged. Are you an alcoholic? I got this question occasionally when I was the firearms unit head in the state police. So if you're in recovery and you identify yourself as an alcoholic, can you answer yes to this question? Yes, you can. Will it mean an automatic disqualification? No, not necessarily, because if you're in recovery but you describe yourself as an alcoholic, you just explain that. So you say yes, and at the end, any yes answers, there's an opportunity for you to explain. And you just explain, I've been in recovery for 5 years, for 10 years. At worst, you'll be required to have a physician or doctor write you a note or issue you a note that says, in their opinion, you have been clean and sober for whatever, and in their opinion, you can safely handle a firearm if you're being treated by a physician. So if you have a question about that, and if you feel like you describe yourself as an alcoholic and you don't want to answer no to that, you can answer yes, and you can just explain it. Hey, I've been clean and sober for X amount of years. Yeah, maybe I did have a problem with drinking before, but I'm in recovery, and here's the situation. Not going to be an automatic disqualification necessarily. Have you ever been confined or committed to a mental health institution or hospital for treatment or observation of any mental or psychiatric condition on a temporary, interim, or permanent basis? So it's asking you, have you ever been confined or committed to a mental health institution or hospital for treatment or observation for mental health condition or temporary, interim, or permanent basis? So you need to be truthful about this because, again, your name is checked in the mental health database statewide in New Jersey, and that system is maintained by the Administrative Office of the Courts. And if your name does come up in that system and you've answered no here, then they're going to ask you why did you lie about this? So be truthful about this question. Again, does not mean necessarily that you're going to be automatically disqualified. So you might have been committed, a judge might have ordered you to be evaluated in a facility for 48 hours. Maybe there was a drug or alcohol incident, and maybe it happened 30 years ago. And so if it happened to you, you answer yes and you explain it. To that would be a physician's note, a treating physician's note saying, I treat John Doe for X, Y, or Z, and in my opinion, it is safe for them to own and possess and handle firearms. So it could be as simple as getting a note from your doctor if you've answered yes to this question. So again, not an automatic disqualifier, but lying on your application is an automatic disqualifier, and you could possibly face criminal charges if you lie. So, and it asks you about narcotics and controlled dangerous substances. This question is important. Have you ever had a firearms purchaser identification card or permit to purchase a handgun or any other firearms license or application refused or revoked in New Jersey or any other state? This is where you need to be truthful. If you've been denied, you need to answer truthfully, because if you've been denied and you answer no, then they're going to find out because you're in the system as a denial. Everybody who gets denied is in the database that the state police maintain. Your name will come up as a denial. So be truthful about this. Now, if you've withdrawn your application for whatever reason, if the police have given you the option to withdraw your application, if they say you have that option, a withdrawal is not a denial. So if your police department says, yeah, we're going to withdraw your application per your request, say something happened in your background or they need more information and you decide you don't want to continue with the application, say this happened a year ago, 2 years ago, and you've withdrawn your application, that is not a denial. So it might not be a bad thing that you've withdrawn. Maybe you've started an application and maybe you, with work, maybe you need to move or relocate. So you've decided, I'm not going to continue this application because I'm not going to live here anymore. So a withdrawal is not necessarily a bad thing. So just keep that in mind. A withdrawal is not a denial when you get to this question. So the next phase, it asks you about references. You need 2 references. They can be family members. So you need their name, their address, their phone number, and their email. It's very important. They get these questions automatically emailed to them from the system. So they're going to get an email and it's going to say, John Doe has put you down as a reference. If you've agreed to be a reference, please answer these questions. And it gives you a list of questions to answer. It's all automated. It goes immediately back to the system and the investigator sees these responses to the questions. So my thing to you is, first ask the person, even if they're a close friend, ask them if they're okay with being a reference on your firearms application. Some people don't want to be a reference on your firearms application. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. Doesn't mean they're a bad friend. Some people just don't want to do it. So don't take it personally. Just ask somebody else. Make sure you have their correct email address, because if they don't get these questions or they don't respond right away, and when you do talk to them, ask them, please respond right away, because your application will be held up if they don't respond right away. So it can't continue. It can only go so far until these references get back to them. So you will get a response, an email response, when your references do respond to the questions, just so you know. So talk to your references, make sure it's okay to use them, and then make sure you have a good email address for them and a good phone number. Typically, the investigator will not need to call them, because again, this is all automated. They get emailed these questions. But if they do need to call them, if they need to follow up on something or ask them something, then make sure they have a good number to reach them. So the next thing that it will do, it will bring you to the review phase, the review page. It will show you everything that you're applying for. It will show you the ORI, your police department. It will have all your information. It will give you the opportunity to edit or change any of the information. Once you approve that, if everything looks good to you and you approve, it brings you to the credit card screen where you need to pay. Now, just so you know about the fees, typically it's a $5 fee for an initial Firearms ID card, and it's $2 for every handgun permit to purchase. There's also a $20, if you've been fingerprinted before and you have an SBI number, you also pay a $21 fee. It's called the 212A fee. This fee is for the New Jersey State Police to run your SBI number in the system and make sure that you haven't been arrested yesterday or an hour ago. And that's what that 212A fee is. That $21 fee is them running your name in the system to make sure that you haven't been arrested recently. You might have done this process a month ago and got approved, and maybe you were arrested last night for a domestic violence incident and you're in the system as an arrest. So this 212A check will pick that up. So once you pay these fees, now it does also tell you that the fees are payable to your police department. That $2 per permit to purchase a handgun and the $5 fee for an initial ID card, those fees are paid to your PD. So once you get to the credit card screen and you pay with a credit card, the $21 fee, and the fees for the FARS, there's a service fee for FARS to use this system. Then you'll get a confirmation screen that you've submitted the application, and it will tell you to contact your local police department if in fact you have any questions or you need to change something. Say you just learned that email address was not good for your one reference. You need to reach out to your local police department and say, I need to change an email address on my firearms application. So what I did was I immediately got an email from the system, from the FARS system, telling me that they received the application and it was submitted successfully and that I was going to owe fees to the police department. And by the way, you will get notified as status updates of this application. So when one of your references submits their questions, and it does not take them long to do, you'll immediately get an email from the system telling you reference 1 completed their questions, reference 2 completed their questions. So I got an email a couple days later from my local police department saying they received my application, and in order to continue, I have to go there and pay them for the $2 for each permit to purchase. And if I was getting an ID card, which I'm not, I have to pay them $5 for that. Some PDs may have the ability to do this online to make the payment. My PD doesn't. I had to I just went there and paid them. And then once I paid them, they updated it in the system. And then I was able to, the application process continued. 2 weeks later, I got an email saying that my application was approved. Now, granted, my police department knows me. I'm a retired trooper. I have nothing in my background that would preclude me from getting a firearm. So I know that I'm an easy applicant. There's nothing they have to investigate further. Some people might have something that happened 30 years ago that pops up in the system that they need to check offline and just confirm that it's not a disqualifier. So in my case, I don't have anything like that in my background. So I knew that mine was going to be fairly quick, and my PD's pretty quick. Some PDs, they're very busy. Some PDs are understaffed. And, on that note, I just have to mention that some people know that by statute, the police department's supposed to complete it within 30 days. When I was in the state police, we would tell people that 30-day clock does not start until the police department has everything they need back for your background. So if they're waiting for something from a court that they have to manually look up and they don't get back to you right away, then that's going to hold up your application. So the clock doesn't start until they have everything they need to do your background. Now, some stuff is done automatically. A lot of stuff is done automatically in FARS. Like, for example, the mental health was a holdup in the past. When I was in the state police, the mental health check was a holdup. We had to fax them the request, and you had to wait for that fax to come back. And now it's an automatic check in the system. So that is done immediately. So there's no holdup on mental health. Now, that being said, there could be a holdup. So, for example, if you've never been committed to a mental health facility, but yet you have the same name and date of birth as someone who was, then that might come up as a flag that you were committed when in fact you weren't. So when the police contact you and say, hey, were you ever in this facility? And you say no, they're going to need a follow-up to make sure that in fact was not you. So the mental health check is automatic and it's immediate, but it doesn't mean that they will not have to follow up on something necessarily manually. They may have to. So keep in mind that 30-day period of time might be more than 30 days if they're still waiting for some stuff to come back from your background. This email that I got from FARS tells me that my application was approved and that I have an ID card. I didn't apply for an ID card because I already have one, but I guess automatically they put it down in the system. So I have a year that I can download this PDF file. I can click on it. I can save it to my computer, which I did. You can take a picture of it. You can print it out on your printer. I did all the above. So I have this ID card now. It's they call it a State of New Jersey Firearm Identification Card. It was a New Jersey State Firearms Purchaser Identification Card. It's still the same card. It's got your name, address, SBI number on it. It also tells me that my 2 permits to purchase handguns are in the system. I won't see them. I don't get a physical copy of that, and I won't get a confirmation email until those are executed. So when I physically go to the store to buy that handgun, now the dealer goes in the system, pulls up my SBI number, and the dealer can see that I have 2 permits to purchase in the system. They're valid. And when I buy that gun, when I physically take possession of it after I get a NICS check at point of sale, which is a separate fee you have to pay for as well, if I pass the NICS check, then I purchase the handgun, then that dealer will execute that permit to purchase in the system. So instead of 2 after that purchase, I will only have 1 left in the system. Again, it will be good for 90 days. It will be automatically renewed for an additional 90 days, a total of 180 days, unless the chief of police cancels it in the system, which he or she can do based on your situation. Again, maybe you were arrested last night. Maybe they came to your house for something, a disturbance. Maybe they're not sure if you should be able to buy a gun until they check you out further. Whatever the case may be, they have the ability to cancel those pending permits to purchase. That's it, folks. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. If you like the video, please hit the like button and share this video. Also, consider subscribing to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching. Take care and stay safe.